Quintet's unofficial Soul Blazer trilogy continued in 1994 with Illusion of Gaia. The game pushed the series forward by incorporating multiple moves, character transformations, and a sometimes comical, sometimes serious story. With every intention of continuing their streak, they set out to build upon the series with the successor to Illusion of Gaia. The project resulted in the creation of Terranigma, the conclusion to the three-part series. There was just one problem though, at least as far as I was concerned at the time. The title never made it to North America. This seems to be because of several reasons. First, the Japanese publisher for the game, Enix, closed its North American offices as the game arrived in Japan. This prevented the title from having a guaranteed North American publisher. It's likely that no alternative publisher signed on because the SNES was so late in its lifespan. Nevertheless, Terranigma was released in both Europe and Australia in 1996, complete with an English translation. The name Terranigma comes from the combination of two Latin words. Terra is the Latin word for earth, whereas enigma means puzzle. When merged together, the game means earth puzzle, or mystery of the earth, and this actually makes sense when considering the game's primary themes. In Japan, it's called Tenchi Sozo, which translates to the creation of heaven and earth. The contrast between light versus dark, the overworld versus underworld, and growth versus decline are all dichotomies that are explored in the game. The story at the heart of Terranigma revisits some elements from Illusion of Gaia, but overall, the game is a bit darker and more mature. The protagonist is Ark, a boy from the village of Krista known for his mischievous personality. At the beginning of the game, Ark defies the order of the village elder, opens a forbidden door, and touches a mysterious box inside. The decision unleashes a powerful curse upon the village, and Ark soon discovers that everyone's been frozen, except for the village elder. The elder informs him that the only way to rectify the situation is to resurrect continents on the surface of the world. As he begins his adventure, Ark stands in awe of a vast underworld filled with magma rivers and crystal mountains. Though experience-oriented leveling was removed from Illusion of Gaia, it's back again in Terranigma, so the game is more similar to Soul Blazer's advancement system. The dungeons also have some hurdles that weren't in the previous two games, such as the requirement to climb certain walls to progress through the areas. There's also an innovative magic system that requires reagents called Magi-Rocks, which are limited in the game and serve as containers for spells. They can be recharged in a way, but space is limited, and you'll sometimes find that normal attacks are more effective at destroying certain enemies anyway. And speaking of attacks, like Illusion of Gaia, Terranigma also features several different combat attacks that can be executed in dungeons. First, you have your regular attack with the spear, which is basic, but the attack button can also be used successively to perform multiple rapid hits. The spinner attack is a basic jump move that can be used to flip forward and attack an enemy. The slider attack is probably the most distinct, which allows Ark to leap through the air and dive through enemies in the path of the ability. The rush attack is a forward leap move that lunges through enemies. Lastly, the X-Guard is a defensive move that can be used as a shield. The dungeon bosses are bigger than ever in Terranigma, and some of them pose a true challenge, especially if you're underleveled. The dreaded Bloody Mary fight, for instance, is one encounter that's continually brought up by people that have played through this game. She's protected by a shield of revolving colored jewels that deal damage, and on top of it, if you try to outrange her, she'll throw her head at you. What's more is that she can disappear and teleport at will, so add that to the mix of expletive generators. Most of the bosses aren't quite as bad as her though, and you'll really enjoy the graphical quality and design of some of them. They're some of the best on the system. There's also a city expansion mechanic where some of the towns in the game grow, change, and develop after completing various side quests. Most of these changes are cosmetic, and ultimately there are as many as 3 different versions of some cities. This was a great way to add color to the game and keep it dynamic, and it reminds me a bit of what was done with the PlayStation version of Lunar the Silver Star story. Much of the game's story progression is conveyed in scenes where the world is transformed after completing various dungeons. As the player resurrects continents of the world, you really get a sense of the emotional impact the developers intended, and the scenes are beautiful visually. Both of these concepts prove the developers poured hard work into the title to make it that much more special than many of its counterparts. Also, there's another aspect about the way Terranigma's story is presented that I wanted to draw attention to. While the game relies heavily on emotion and morality, it doesn't push a particular moral or political agenda on the player. Instead, it conveys the idea that there are consequences to choices made in life. Playing through the game, you can experience these changes in the animals, landscapes, and habitation. All of this did much to make the title into a true interactive experience that was more than just a series of events. Of all Terranigma's many strengths, the greatest may be its soundtrack. It was the product of Miyoko Takaoka and Masanori Hikichi, both of which were new to the Soul Blazer series. But out of the 3 games in this trilogy, this one has the best soundtrack. The collection of tunes, over 50 in total, represents some of the best work on the whole system. The deep, emotional tracks are creatively intermixed with the more energetic, action-oriented tunes, and the developers really did a superb job of making sure to fit the tracks into the game at the appropriate places. From the opening of the game forward, I promise the soundtrack will draw you into the game like very few others do. It really reminds me of Final Fantasy VI in that way. A few of my favorites are Hometown, an infectious melody that gives a calm vibe at the beginning of the game, and Light and Darkness, which serves as the game's main theme of sorts. Overall, the game has one of the SNES's best non-Squaresoft soundtracks, and it certainly rivals some of Square's best works too. My only real complaint about Terranigma is its unique but cumbersome inventory and menu system. In contrast to, say, Secret of Mana's ring system, or even Soul Blazer's menu, Terranigma uses an inventory room system where Ark jumps into a magical box and has to venture through various rooms to select different weapons and armor. While this was completely innovative, I think it became a time-consuming burden. I just felt like it took away too much from the gameplay. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but I wasn't a fan of it. In nearly every respect, I think Terranigma beats out the other 2 games of the Soul Blazer trilogy. Its combat was better designed, with excellent hit detection and a variety of attacks that ensured engaging gameplay. The story is more mature and developed than that of Illusion of Gaia, and builds upon the serious elements that made its predecessor stand out. Its graphics and animations are also a step forward for the series, and even more work was paid to boss design, attack animations, and storyline sequences. The soundtrack is fantastic, and the game is full of challenges. When it comes to games that never made it to North America, Terranigma is an omission that stands as one of the most egregious. The fact that it had a complete English translation, but still didn't make it across the ocean, was demoralizing to those that were looking forward to it. Nevertheless, it's certainly worth playing now through emulation or by finding a cart. It holds up better than most SNES games, and even though it gets plenty of notoriety now, it's still a hidden gem of sorts to most North American gamers that didn't get to try it at the time. If you like this review and remember Terranigma, leave a comment below about the most memorable aspect of the game to you. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell below to be alerted upon the addition of new ones. Also, please consider joining my Discord community linked in the description, and support my channel via YouTube's Join feature to receive member exclusives, such as advanced videos and complete video transcripts.